Welcome to Produce Talks.
This whole business is based on relationship and friendships.
Food is darn simple.
What can we do? What are other countries doing?
How important it is for industry to be talking about this.
We're going back to the farm. We're going back to the whole food.
Hi, I'm Wally Burns, the Education and Training Manager at CPMA. CPMA would like to acknowledge Nature Fresh Farms as our Produce Talks series sponsor. Find out more about Nature Fresh Farms and how they are growing for a kinder future at www.naturefresh.ca. You can keep up with them on Instagram or Twitter at nature_fresh and on Pinterest at naturefresh, along with other social media. In today's episode, we feature a recording of a recent CPMA Learning Lounge from our 2022 Convention and Trade Show. Climate change, pesticide management, improving yields, and growing in non-traditional areas are just some of the factors that influence how produce is grown. As the industry focuses on feeding the world in changing circumstances, increasingly, companies are expanding the items produced in greenhouses, focusing on vertical farming, and even growing produce right in the retail store. Listen now as our moderator, Steve Bamford of Bamford Produce, leads an informative discussion with some industry experts on new ways of growing produce.
Hi, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Future Growth Change in Produce Production. Thank you everyone for showing up today. For your listening experience, you can use the headsets because it might be a little bit loud, but if you're good with this, then we'll get going. So thank you today to the panel for everyone for joining us. To start, can you please introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your company?
Sure. My name is Florent Schmahl. I'm the Chief of Staff of Growcer Modular Food Solution. We develop indoor modular farms and deploy them across Canada to communities, institutions, organizations that want to take control of their food production and build toward the food journey. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, hi, I'm Amy Bowen. I'm at the Vineland Research and Innovation Center, and we are a private not-for-profit horticultural research center that works in many different areas, including new variety development, pest and disease management, as well as consumer insights and technology.
Hello, everybody. My name is Barry Murchie. I'm the president and CEO of GoodLeaf and TruLeaf Farms. We're a vertical farming company based in Guelph, Ontario. We grow baby greens and microgreens.
Hey everyone, Philippe Labrie from GreenForges. We're developing underground systems since 2019. We're based in Ottawa. I'm the CEO.
My name is Bahram Rashti from Up Vertical Farms. It's shown as Fresh Green Farms, but Up Vertical is what you'll see on the actual product and the branding. We're in the business of controlled environment agriculture, where we build plant factories to feed provinces and states, so vertical indoor farming for baby leafy greens as well. And we work with the Oppenheimer Group for sales, marketing, and distribution all over North America. So our intent is to build one all across North America as needed.
And I'm your moderator today, Steve Bamford, with Fresh Advancements out of Toronto, Canada. So you're all here today because you're growing produce in a non-traditional way. Tell us what drove the decisions and where you're seeing the benefits.
Yes, so for Growcer, it's been very much a mission-driven initiative where our founders were in Nunavut back in 2016 and worked with an hamlet of Iqaluit, and the population realized that the population had very limited access to greens and really affordable nutritious food, leading to a lot of subsequent health issues. So from there, we realized that there is an opportunity to leverage the indoor farming technology and the modular aspect of it to enable those populations to deploy containerized pods, hook them up to electricity and water, and start growing food on a year-round basis. So it's really with the drive to bring fresh food all across the country.
And Amy?
Okay, so at Vineland, our mission is to create innovation, economic stability, sustainability, and to drive horticulture forward. So we work very much with our stakeholders and industry partners to sort of stay innovative and forward thinking. So for that, you always have to think of what's next, what's coming down the pipeline, what is it that people sort of need to get that way. And so some of the ways that we use that through research is new variety development around sort of adaptation, that sort of intersection of technology adoption with like horticulture and production to be able to create more sustainable industry. And then also understanding, who the client and the consumer is and how we can get them to adopt and, continue to implement this to bring, the sector forward.
Great.
Thanks, Steve. I had a 25-year career with McCain Foods, and I worked with McCain around the world. McCain is an investor in TruLeaf and GoodLeaf, and I facilitated that initial investment. And I was so taken by the potential of vertical farming and the quality of the product that it really sort of caused me to sort of shift course in my career. So I really looked at 4 key things when I got involved. The first one was, is there a need? Following the need of the market, the need of the consumer, the need of the customers, and it was pretty clear that there was a need. The second was, is there a solution? And is it a hope or a dream, or is it real right now? And sort of check that box as well. The third one was, it is a capital-intensive business, and do we have the support both from a financial perspective and from our customers? And so I looked at that and said, yeah, we're in good shape there. And then the fourth one was really the product itself. And so when I got a chance to see just the level of quality, it's like something that comes from your garden year-round. And for the Canadian environment, it was particularly relevant. So those 4 components caused me to sort of step in.
Well, in my case, I was looking at how can we integrate food production in cities in different ways. And basically, we asked the question, what about the underground? And we're still trying to figure that out. It's a process where we're developing new types of systems that are designed to be integrated under new constructions. So think of deep vertical shafts that you can have the real estate work a new business model with real estate developers, and that they can simply drill under their new buildings and new developments. So we're using the same size that these buildings and these construction companies already use, same equipment. So still we're not producing right now, we're still developing the technology. We're doing simulations and lab work, and we're planning on building our first system by the end of the year. So.
Perfect. Let me just make sure. I actually come from the healthcare side. I studied biology, and then I worked as a dentist for many years. And part of our training at the Vancouver General Hospital, because we're from Vancouver, BC, we used to rotate up north to less, let's say, where there was less access to care, whether it was on the actual island where we worked with the First Nations group or others further north. And we used to rotate through, and I realized when I used to live there for a few weeks or months at a time, I wouldn't be having the same access to quality or price as I would back on the mainland. And that always stayed with me, and then after a couple of years of looking for new opportunities with my partners, my brothers, I realized that this is something that we can pool our actual experience and resources, because I come from the pharmacokinetics and plant physiology side. My brother does IT from the tech side, and he has a doctorate in business. And by pooling these resources, we realized we can actually tackle and fix a problem that is actually prevalent in agriculture. And we said, why wait for another company in another country? Why don't we focus and actually build that technology and know-how here in Canada and apply it to the local markets here and provide fresh local food to replace and displace anything coming from further distances like the US. And the benefits do include the saving of agricultural land. So we use 99% less agricultural land to actually build our plant facilities, with about over 350 times more yield per square foot of land per year. And we also use 99% less fresh water as well, which is tremendous. And there's a big problem that everybody's aware of in agriculture. And with these benefits, including 99% less fertilizer, because we have a closed loop system that we recycle all of it, including CO2, the benefits are astounding in our opinion. And there's no pesticides. So at the end of the day, consumers get a fresh product that lasts longer on their shelves, and they don't have to actually throw away the food and the actual product. So we think these were the benefits, and this is why we went into it. And it's the most sustainable way and efficient way to build it, doing agriculture right now, and we're happy to be a part of it.
Well, I find it really interesting that most of you on the panel here don't really come from a produce background and identified a problem and are looking to create a solution for it, which is really cool. So you guys are really leading the edge on it. So there are many factors which drive innovation, and that will be the topic for the next discussion of our next panel. But what you are doing, as I mentioned, is definitely innovative. What do you think the future looks like when we consider innovation in growing? And why don't we reverse the panel here?
Sure, it's not a problem. There's many aspects that are going to be emerging technologies. One of the key ones I think will be data analysis as well as image processing as well, I believe. So by implementing these indoors in your facilities and tracking each level and each canopy, monitoring them from systems that people don't necessarily need to go and look themselves, and to rely on human error, right away systems and your database can in fact predict any changes or deviations of what they're supposed to be and immediately implement solutions to do so, whether it's by telling somebody to do it or connecting them to your systems to do it automatically. Since we work with tremendous amounts of yields, even a few grams or a few kilogram changes do impact the bottom line. And so by implementing these kind of technologies, you'll be able to get a very consistent output, high yields, quality, fresh food that's not only nutritious but tastes great all the time. So I think these are the two things. Data and data analysis would be something that will be coming up more and more and has already started in our field.
On the subject of innovation, I mean, we're pretty innovative going, trying to define that. Yeah, I think for my part, I'm going to praise for ma paroisse here, but we believe the future of growing, there's going to be a big part of it done underground. The reason is energy. If you think of sunless vertical farming, but you bring it where the climate is stable, so it doesn't change, you save energy on HVAC, and also you can get rid of waste heat and things like that. So we're really focused on the energy and the underground part. So I'd say much of what we do, because it's so custom, is difficult to integrate with what's already existing in the current market. So we're doing a lot of custom things and innovating just to make it happen, to make it a reality.
So I would probably agree with your point on data and the importance of data as we go forward. So no doubt that's something that we have to continue to leverage. But that really gets to recipe optimization in a very real sense. I would also say that controlled environment agriculture is really what we're all pursuing, and control with a capital C. And so really understanding all of our inputs and making sure that this really turns into an exercise of just replicating the same formula, the same recipe day after day after day. It's about predictability, it's about consistency, it's about quality. So understanding how do we leverage data to get us to that point, that would be one issue. Another one would be seed. The seed that we're using really around the world was seed that was developed for open air farming. And so that was really designed to be drought resistant and pest resistant. And if it didn't clear those two hurdles, it was sort of thrown in the scrap heap or put in the vault. So we're now seeing a tremendous surge in activity around seed engineering that is destined or is targeted for controlled environment ag. And so we can actually have access to the vault of seed that's already out there, and because there's a lot of that can give very significant advances from a yield perspective, from a quality perspective, from just the integrity of the plants themselves. So seed will be a very significant component going forward. And then just application of the technology, the potential of vertical farming to be applied to specialty plants where it could be leveraged into pharmaceuticals, nutraceuticals, personal care, fragrances, flavors, animal health. There's a wide industry already that's in place where specialty plants are being utilized from various corners of the world. Vertical farming gives the opportunity to replicate really any microenvironment anywhere around the world. So there's a tremendous opportunity there as well. There's many more, but I'll stop there.
Okay, so as you get further down the line, people steal your things, right? So, but the biggest thing I think kind of goes to what you're talking about is it's going to be a multidisciplinary solution. So it's not just going to be technology, it's not just going to be the genetics, it's not just going to be the production system. It's going to be bringing all of that together and learning and that sort of integration to understand what are the seeds we need to be able to grow it in that environment, or how do we build the perfect environment and then optimize the plants to be produced in that. So lighting comes into play, data comes into play. Understanding what the end user wants of that product is going to come into play, so understanding the consumer sort of throughout that value chain. But I think that's the real strength in it, and that's the sort of exciting part now when we think about it, is that there's people coming from all these other industries, bringing in their knowledge, bringing in their experience and expertise to drive horticulture forward, and that multidisciplinary, cross-disciplinary approach is what's really going to make things happen in the future.
Yeah, I would agree, and I will echo what the other panelists have said. I think the future of food is local and it's bright because now we have the opportunity to leverage new technologies at an affordable cost, delivering very precise and consistent yield, but also we will be able to aggregate the different growing platform in medium, like how does a vertical farm can support a greenhouse to extend the growing season, and how field farming can integrate all of that. So we can imagine a future where, at the community level, we will be able to access a very wide variety of food on a year-round or sub-year-round basis. You also have to think through food storage and food processing innovation happening. But I think we need to rethink our food system. We need to rethink how we all access food today, because by 2050, 2060, the current system will be outdated and won't be able to support growing population. But I think the very exciting factor is that today technology enables us to think about a very bright and local future for food.
That's great. Thank you, guys. We need to talk a bit about the pandemic. Unfortunately, as we look around the room, we realize that we're still somewhat mixed up in one wave or another of the pandemic. Hopefully, we're in our last one. But the impact on food security, which was on top of a great deal of food insecurity that already existed across Canada. Fresh produce is often an area that can be difficult for families to access, not just if they don't have the means to purchase it, but also because in remote areas, what we describe as actually food deserts, it might not actually be available. I think that we all hope innovations in produce growing could help address some of this. Can you comment on this?
Yeah, for sure. This is this is the main reason why Growcer exists today. It started by seeing a head of lettuce that costed $15 in a hamlet in Nunavut, and that was far from being fresh. And from there, we leverage technology, leverage modular farming to now have over 40 projects across coast to coast in Canada, and having communities that can grow their own food, having community members that are converting into agriculture, gardening, horticulture, having kids from high school in remote Manitoba that can enjoy fresh and very nutritious green at every lunch. So I think tying back to the previous question, not everybody, especially in Canada, have the same access to food, and Canada as a country is somewhat also at the mercy of the elements, and the last 2 years have showcased that. So indoor farming and vertical farming and combining the different ways of farming is a way where we can build a stronger future for the country and for population in our country that don't have today a normal access to food that we can enjoy in the main urban area.
Yeah, so I think, it's really sort of brought to light, the sort of whole local food movement, and revisited that whole of where's our food coming from, how close is it, where are the processors that can take the food from the field and make it into something that can make it to the grocery stores or make it to the remote communities. So that whole sort of chain of it's being sort of looked at. And so, we think of the whole sort of food waste and unavoidable food waste has sort of come more to light, as well as all sort of those avoidable sources. So those are, sort of big things to be thinking about, is sort of that reinvigoration in the processing industry within, the food supply chain within Canada. And then I think the other thing too is then looking at as well is optimizing, what we are growing and what we can produce, so that we have food available or produce available for longer seasons. So extending the seasons of where it can grow, or finding varieties that are adapted to cooler or warmer climates so that we can grow them in more areas, in more communities, and then also optimizing technologies where we don't need to count on Mother Nature and all the unpredictability there, but we can build sort of food solutions. If you think of it, you've got a vertical food solution processor and shipper all in the same building. Well, isn't that a great way to get your food to your community quickly if you can get it all sort of stationed in an area? So I think it brought a lot of those things to light. The feasibility of it, that's a whole other thing we have to figure out. But I think that sort of opportunities that have come to light is that we have to really look at sort of the food sustainability and security within our own country a little more carefully.
So I think that you just take a look at statistics, and there's some obvious things that jump out beyond COVID and the global pandemic. Canada as a country, from a leafy green perspective, is highly dependent on the U.S. I think somewhere between 80 and 90% of our leafy greens come from California or Arizona. So fundamentally, you look at that and you say that's suboptimal for us as Canadian consumers and Canadian companies. So how do we find a way to pivot from that? And I think what happened in the pandemic is it exacerbated sort of fault lines that already existed. And I'll just give you some real examples. Just transportation alone. So I heard a stat a few weeks ago. There were 33 truckloads, or there 33 loads for every driver in the U.S. About a month ago. And so just finding a way to get the product from the source to the destination continues to be a challenge. The whole issue of the supply source right now and the constraints on water. We have a partnership with a very large organic grower in the U.S., and their prediction is that 20 or 10 years from now, they're going to have 25% less of their acreage in California and Arizona. And that has to do with water. That has to do with a larger buffer zone around other ag operations because of cross-contamination and things like that. So they're looking for ways to try and address, or innovation to try and address the sort of the sourcing problem. And so I think all those things already existed, but I think COVID really sort of pushed everything to the surface and just made it more real and more urgent to find solutions.
Yeah, COVID definitely put oil on the fire for that, or at least raised awareness of I think, consumers and just the industry in general about that. So I think you nailed, we constantly hear about transport, labor, all these issues, and it is about reinventing a system based on our needs, and there's not much else to say than I think COVID in that sense was positive, or at least raised awareness about these systems or our food supply. So, I don't have much more to comment. You've nailed the good points already.
Thank you. Controlled environment agriculture is what will actually provide access to fresh food in these areas that we discussed, whether it's the islands that I visited before or just the northern regions. What traditionally happens is, just like Barry said, there's a centralized system and a centralized area where food is produced based on the climate and it gets distributed to different regions of North America. And Canada is heavily dependent on California, for example. And what we're going to see now with this industry and the emerging kind of technologies that we're all developing, we're going to lead and push a decentralized system where we will be able to build these facilities all across North America, and even in the harshest of climates, and even better. The reason is we will take those optimal points of what the plants require to grow in nature, whether it's humidity-based, temperature, and we will mimic them indoors, and as a result, we will be giving them exactly what they require to grow well, and to grow tasty, and be nutritious. And we will cut out those transportation and logistics issues that do come with cutting it from afar and having that nutritional content go down by the time it reaches an actual community. So CEA will allow for that, and it will allow for the actual access to clean, nutritious food all year round, 365, no matter where these are built, and feed that region. So I think those benefits are there, and it's just a matter of building more of these and actually becoming less reliant on that centralized system and building more of these across North America in regions that need it.
You guys have all spoken about some issues that traditional farming has that controlled environment agriculture does not have, but there must be some unique challenges that you have to deal with that controlled environment ag doesn't. Can you please speak about those?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, technology-related issues, especially if you think about the winter season, HVAC system freezing up, or electricity shortage, and really just making sure that the farms is running on a 365-day basis. So those are things we can control, but also something we have to be on the lookout for, and nature sometimes come and bite us. The other, I think, major aspect is around pest management. Because we're creating the perfect environment for plants to grow, we're also creating the perfect environment for pests to thrive. So really respecting standard operating procedure and pest management procedure is really, really key in order to really ensure this consistency, because all we do is harnessing the power of technology and nature, bundling them together and kind of breaking the boundaries of what is to some extent possible organically. But it comes with some risk that we have to be aware of and be prepared for. But everything is somewhat controllable.
So I'm not a production specialist, so I'm going to leave that to everybody that's actually dealing with those. But I'm going to talk about it from the consumer angle, which is where I look at it more. And so I think of it as, it's something that's coming. It's sort of new innovation. We need it and all of that. But the variety mix, I think, is going to be something that's really, really important. Because I think if you look at sort of the evolution of fruits and vegetables, we make it, as was mentioned, for the field, to grow so it's, an efficient crop. But consumers want flavor. They want, specific varieties. They want specific brands. They want specific profiles, sizes, all of these types of things. So that's going to be another thing to really make it successful, is to get the right variety mix that's optimized both from that sort of agronomic growing perspective in these environments, but also that meets the needs of what everybody's looking for, so that people are going to the store and you're not having to sell them on the benefits of why we're growing in a controlled environment, but they're saying, wow, that's fantastic, that's so good, that's what I want, and they're seeking out those products. So I think that's going to be a key piece that we can't forget as we're building all the data, technology, production, lighting, airflow, all of these other things that are in there that have to be there, otherwise we're never going to get the plants to grow. But we need to remember that piece as we sort of evolve sort of through it, as an important piece for that commercial success moving forward.
Excellent point, Amy.
So within our company, we really try and look at everything through the filter of our customer or consumers. And where they have pain points, their pain points are our pain points. So we want to be sort of very centric to what their needs are. And so when we try and understand what those pain points are, sort of made a list of them. We touched on transportation. There's also the issue of quality and freshness and flavor and taste. There's the whole issue of shrink of the product that ultimately gets to the consumer. There's a definite shrink problem. The predictability of supply, food safety, nutrient density, and then ever present at this point is inflation and just all of the various factors that are driving inflation. So those are some, I think, very real challenges that are in the market now, and so we want to try and do what we can to address those and mitigate those challenges for our customers and the consumers. So that would be one set. A second set would really be about scaling our business. So we have 2 additional farms that we're in the process of constructing right now. One is just across the bridge in just outside of Montreal in Longueuil, and we're building another farm in Calgary. And so we foresee for several years to come, we're going to be somewhat of a construction company. We will be building more and more farms, not only in Canada, but in various parts of the world. So we have to get very good at that, and that really requires people and technology, and then also the adaptation of what is the right technology to put in our farms, what really is relevant and what really moves the needle. So that whole piece around scaling. And then the third one would be really about how do we tell the story of vertical farming. I'd say the vast majority of the consumers don't know what vertical farming is, and spoken as vertical farming, it doesn't really sort of roll off the tongue. So we have to sort of find a way to convey the message of what the story is, and the best way of doing that is really talking about the attributes. And the idea that it's local, the idea that it's pesticide free, the idea that it's nutrient dense, the idea of predictability, the flavor, the taste. You actually don't have to have processed food to have as explosive a flavor profile as we're able to deliver through leafy greens in a vertical farmed context. So conveying that strong message to the consumer is going to be a challenge for us. It's a long road, but there's a very rich story to be told.
Yeah, definitely. The convergence between technology and biology makes it complicated, doesn't it? It's there's a lot of little things that can go wrong. Achieving that consistency is, I have a lot of respect for that and for the work that goes into that. So that's definitely a challenge, just in general for the vertical farming industry, along with the others that were mentioned. In the context of underground, for us it's about the energy calculations and the energy stuff. So that's where our challenge is at the moment. We are building shafts that are going 30 meters deep, creates a lot of humidity quickly, not obviously, later in the growth stage more. So all these challenges that are technical to production systems, how do you design a proper HVAC for it? That's never been done in shaft. How do you design all these custom elements? So that's quite challenging. Besides that, for us, it's also the business side of things. It's really new. When we show this to the people, they often think, is this real? Is this legit? Is this going to be commercially viable? We are very focused. We wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't showing in the spreadsheet that there's, some commercial viability to it. So for us, it's getting to that specific, to that step with our clients and with our partners. I'd say that's the challenge on our side.
Thank you. The challenges in this industry that's emerging compared to traditional ways of farming, two of the ones that stand out to us a lot more is the fact that we require a lot more energy to actually run these facilities, because the amount of LED lights that we use is incredible, and to mimic what we actually get from the sun and then stack them up in layers and levels. And so the OpEx there is actually really, really high. And so this is one of the challenges, whereas the actual field grown and traditional ways of farming, whether it's even greenhouse, they just rely on the sun. So that's just one level. So that's one of the areas that hopefully it's not our mandate, but the electrical companies and energy providers, if they can reduce that helps a lot. But that is a challenge that we all face in this field. The other one that I've noticed is there is a bit of a gap between the private sector advancing into the field of controlled environment agriculture and public policy lagging a little bit in regards to what is allowed, where can you do it, agricultural land, etc. So one thing that would really help, and this is a challenge because traditional farming has been going on for generations, in this new field, it will be ideal if governments do provide policies to encourage or at least not create a roadblock so others can enter this space. We can excel and kind of build more. BC did a great job. They changed their laws recently, and they did allow vertical farming on agricultural land. That is not the case in all provinces. So this is just an example of where there's a little bit of a catching up to do from the public policy side. And if that changes a little bit and it adheres more towards allowing vertical farming to grow, and that will help the industry as a whole. So we're looking forward to that as well.
Well, those are all great answers. Thank you, everyone. We're running a little tight on time, but I wanted to give the audience a chance to ask some questions if they had any. So, Jane has the microphone, so just raise your hand if you have any questions. And if it's to an individual panelist or all of them, please let us know.
Yeah, excuse me. Hi there. I'm sorry I can't take my mask off, but my question really is, do you see the controlled agricultural environment developing beyond producing just leafy greens? Are we going to get stuck in just producing leafy greens? Because there's only so many leafy greens you can eat, and it's only so nutritious. What do you see the future in terms of other products being produced indoors?
Who wants to jump on that one?
So I can answer that. I can start if you like. So it's all about feasibility of bringing crops indoors. And yes, there will be all sorts of vegetables that will come in. There's a lot of investment and efforts being placed by the seed providers that Barry also mentioned, that they're actually working on vertical farming seeds to allow for smaller shrubs of a particular plant. So all other vegetables at one point can come in. It's just a matter of which one is the most feasible. What kind of infrastructure is required in regards to lighting? Do you have to swap out the lights? Do you just change the spectrums of the lights while they're still in place? Operationally, how do you harvest them? And that is one thing that I think will really improve controlled environment agriculture, would be the operations being automated more and more. So we do seeding, harvesting, packaging as a fully automated process where nobody touches the actual leaf and keeps it clean, and there's no bruising, and that's why we get extended shelf life based on the growing methods. But not all of these machines currently exist for other crops. So by reducing infrastructure costs and by automating the processes and the seed providers and other stakeholders working on their side, there will be a convergence at one point that other ones will come in more quickly. So we're looking forward to that as well.
I'll jump in if I can as well for, I don't know if you can hear me. I would say the question you asked around things beyond leafy greens is probably a very similar question that was asked about leafy greens 5, 7, 10 years ago, which was, could you ever use LED lights? Could you ever use lighting without the natural sunlight to have a viable, commercially viable leafy green industry? The answer is yes. Will we get there in the other crops? Absolutely. How long will it take? It's a little unclear, but I think it has a lot to do with the seed genetics. It has a lot to do with the lighting technology and the environmental controls. And I think it also has a lot to do with what's going to happen in the planet. You're going to have certain areas that are going to have increasingly significant stress placed on them. So we're going to need to find alternative sources of supply. And so I think it's not the only solution, but it'll be sort of in the basket of options.
Yeah, and I think just to add a final thoughts from a next crop perspective, we've seen the industry starting to make a really nice move towards strawberry production. So today, leafy greens is the most widely used because it's commercially ready. We can produce a commodity at a price point that compete relatively well with current imported produce. And next in line seems to be the strawberry. And if you can imagine a world in 2050, 2060, 2070, we don't fully have the timeline as it was just shared, but we should be able, by not only through control on environmental agriculture, but by combining traditional agriculture, more innovation on greenhouses, and more innovation on control on environmental agriculture, to produce a very wide variety of food on a year-round basis, on a local decentralized way, and hopefully anywhere in the world.
That's great. Thank you, guys. We're just right up against it, so I want to thank everyone for attending today and hope you can save from some of our other learning lounges. Thanks again.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.
Good job.